This is Ethical and Professional Standards, and this is the reading on the Code of Ethics and Standards of Professional Conduct. Only two LOSs in this reading. The first one asks us to describe the structure of the CFA Institute Professional Conduct Program and the process for the enforcement of the code and enforcement of the standards. I want you to think of the CFA Institute as an organization, much like any other organization. It has a group of leaders. This group is known as the Board of Governors. I encourage you to go to the CFA Institute webpage and take a look at the board. The 2018 board consists of 15 members, and these men and women, some of whom are members and some are not, but they're all part of the investment profession. And if you read about them, you'll find that they have impressive backgrounds, and it's reasonable to conclude that they're all very highly skilled and have great leadership qualities. And their job is to maintain oversight over the professional conduct program, which is responsible for the enforcement of the Code of Standards. Of course, this is all done in conjunction with the Disciplinary Review Committee, which consists of volunteer charter holders. Now, the staff works in conjunction with the Disciplinary Review Committee to establish, first of all establish, but then review the professional conduct policies. What are the sources of these conduct inquiries? Every year, a member must sign the annual professional conduct statement, which asks a series of questions about possible violations that may have occurred during the previous year. The professional conduct staff can receive written complaints by members or anyone outside of the membership. Of course, media reports and reports submitted by proctors detailing a candidate's conduct on exam day, and then final exam scores and materials can be evaluated. What happens when an inquiry is initiated? The professional conduct staff then performs their due diligence. Of course, they're going to go on a fact-finding mission that's going to involve interviews with members and the complainants and anybody else who's relevant to the investigation. The conclusion might be that there's no disciplinary action. There might be a cautionary letter which describes the behavior as being potentially unethical. And then there's actual disciplinary disciplinary measures. Now, the members can actually reject those charges or accept them, in which case it will be escalated to the Disciplinary Review Committee, which is kind of like an appeal. What are the possible sanctions? Public censure, suspension of membership and use of the CFA designation for a relatively short time. That can extend to further participation in the CFA program, and then in extreme cases, the revocation of the charter. Now, how does the Institute ensure that the code and the standards, which go back to around 1995, how can it ensure that these are effective? And this occurs through the Standards of Practice Council. And the SPC continuously ensures that the standards and the guidance in the handbook is representative of high standards of professional conduct. It's relevant, it's applicable globally, it's comprehensive and practical and specific and enforceable. And then finally, that it's able to be tested within the CFA program. Second LOS asks us to state the 6 components and the 7 standards. Here are the components of the Code of Ethics. And while memorizing these 6 is probably a challenging task over time, I promise you that the more you study the code and the more you study the standards, the easier it is to memorize these. You'll find that these 6 components will be readily available in your brain when you need them. Let's just go through them briefly. Act with integrity and competence, diligence and respect. Those sound an awful lot like ethical terms. Integrity of the profession and the interest of clients above personal interests. Avoid conflicts of interest. That sounds good. Reasonable care, independent professional judgment. This sounds like we're going to work really hard and we're going to make certain that our internal biases do not come through our ultimate decision. We're going to act as good examples, practice and encourage others to practice in a professional manner, promote the integrity of the capital market, and then, of course, we're going to continue our education, maintain and improve professional competence. Here are the 7 standards: professionalism, integrity of capital markets, duties to clients and prospective clients, duties to employers, investment analysis, recommendations and actions, conflicts of interest, and then the responsibilities as a CFA Institute member or candidate. And so the fascinating thing about the 6 components of the code and the 7 standards are that they are interrelated. Here are the components. This is like the big picture idea behind encouraging ethical behavior among the membership. The big picture idea. Keep close attention to these 6. And then the 7 standards are specific to areas of professional conduct. So this is what we're doing here. We're taking this big picture here and we're applying it to these specific smaller pictures on the 7 standards. What we'll do next is look in detail, in extreme detail, for each of these 7 standards.